and welcome to the Brenhaven webinar. Sorry for being a few minutes late. It only seems appropriate that we'd have technical difficulties when we're talking about technology, and that's clearly what happened in our office. So appreciate you hanging on, and we'll get this thing started. My name is Paul Sobczak. I'm the Director of Education Sales for Brenhaven, and I welcome you to today's session, as I mentioned, Becoming a Chief Change Officer. Before I introduce our guest speaker, I'd like to explain the format a little bit in more detail. Once I turn the speaking part over to Homer, he will continue with his presentation for about 30 minutes or so, and then he will go directly into a Q&A session. He's more than welcome to field your questions, and you'll be typing those in. He'll see those, and he'll answer those as they come in. So that's a pretty simple format. Once he's completed, he'll turn things back over to me, and we'll wrap this up. I also want to let you know that we will be recording this session, and we'll be uploading it to our Brenhaven Education website, and we will notify you when it's uploaded should you like to hear it again. I'd like to, before I introduce Homer, just want to take a minute for those of you that are not familiar with Brenhaven, just take a couple minutes to talk about our history and how we've gotten to this point in our corporate career. The company started back in 1980 here in Seattle, and it was started by a gentleman that really liked to do backpacking and hiking and mountaineering, to the point where he felt like he could make the perfect backpack. So he worked out in his family garage and developed a backpack. That was highly successful, sold that for several years, and with the advent of technology towards the mid-90s, as especially portable technology started to come into play, Brenhaven transitioned to become what we now are today, a technology case, sleeve, device protection company, specifically geared towards entrepreneurs and in support of the digital lifestyle. About 12 years ago, Brenhaven was asked to participate on the State of Maine contract, working very closely with Apple, and that really was around the time that the company evolved and started a separate division specifically geared towards K-12. Which brings us to today. We're still in that business. It's a very strong vertical market for us, and this year in particular we introduced 3 new products into our education catalog, of which that catalog is online. So now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today. Homer Coffman is the Chief Technology Officer at Baldwin County Board of Education. In this capacity, he is responsible for instructional and research computing for students, staff, and faculty at all Baldwin County 47 public schools, overseeing development and operation of the hardware and software infrastructure necessary to support emerging academic and administrative computing needs, recommending technology-related budget priorities, working closely with the executive team to establish institutional technology priorities, managing technology personnel and departments, establishing and convening academic and administrative user groups, and interacting with appropriate statewide technology organizations. Baldwin County is in its 5th year of a one-to-one Mac Air deployment of over 40,000 devices. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Homer. Homer, it's all yours.
Okay, Paul, can you hear me okay? All right. My name is Homer Coffman, and I thank you, Paul, for the introduction, and Brenhaven. I just wanted to go ahead and talk about the experience that we had at Baldwin County for the past 5 years. But before I do that, I wanted to talk briefly. Let's see. I wanted to talk briefly about Baldwin County and the initiative that took part. As it says here, is that we're looking at how to be a chief change officer, and the title for that is done for a reason. Because in our business right now, as chief technology officer, the only constant is change, and we've got a lot of change right now, and we have to manage that. We have to manage that for the teachers in the classroom, and all these, and the greatest resistance to change is teachers themselves. So let me see if I can get there. So we're going to talk today about this and what took part for it. The background of it, my background, I just want to amplify, is that I'm a retired Navy officer, so I come with a different perspective than your typical chief technology officers at K-12s. And also I was a dean of technology for a for-profit university out of Atlanta before becoming the CIO out of the University of Southern Mississippi. Then I came to Baldwin County, and I will tell you, Baldwin County, just like a lot of other K-12s, are in the same situation universities were 10 to 15 years ago with technology. They no longer can have it dispersed throughout the various colleges and departments. It has to be consolidated and run effectively if you want to ensure quality. Baldwin County is a great example. At University of Southern Mississippi, we had roughly about 16,000 students. And we have now over 30,000 students in Baldwin County. You had a $10 million budget at the university. You get about a $2 million budget for infrastructure and technology at a K-12. But that's all changing as we move forward because technology is changing academic structure altogether. And historically is that, you know, the CTOs and technology are the newcomers in education, and they have to fight to get a piece of the pie in that financial position. Historically, personnel and all the schools and the capital expenses have always been there, but IT hasn't. So there's a lot of my peers in the state of Alabama that do not even have a budget. So one of the things we've got to work on as the chief technology officer again is to become a change agent on how pedagogy is delivered, and a change agent on how technology is delivered, and a change agent within the organization itself. So with that said, let me talk to you about some of the things that occurred at Baldwin County. Now, Baldwin County is just southeast of Mobile, Alabama. We're right on the Mobile Bay, and also on right on the Gulf Coast. We've got a beautiful beach, so we get a lot of tourists here. Our county geographically is about the same size as the state of Rhode Island. It's a very large county, one of the largest in the west of Mississippi, east of Mississippi. The 47 schools are not located near each other. They're basically all over the county. So we have distance as one of our challenges too. As mentioned, we have 7 high schools, 10 middle schools, 29 elementary schools, and so we are now in a process of centralizing and maintaining all that. All right, so what we've done and what we're doing right now is implementing a student-centered, collaborative, and a challenge-based learning environment. And that means that we basically are trying to get personalized learning to the student. And it's kind of unique in my role is that not only do I focus on technology, but I really focus heavily on academics. I'm more focused on the district's core mission rather than technology. And if you ask anybody what our focus is right now, our focus is supporting teachers and students and not technology. So I'll describe more of that as we look at our service-based model, but really the focus in our core is students in our one-to-one initiative. I really loathe the term one-to-one because what we're finding is one to infinity. We got a lot of high school students that have smartphones, they have multiple devices. Now they're showing up with the watches. These all take access to your resources on Wi-Fi, whether they're have access to them or not, they're still getting pinged for them. So we're looking on how to get the right programs and the right tools in place for the educational process. So our history is that we had a superintendent, Dr. Lee, that created on the initiative 5 years ago, and this was known as Digital Renaissance. Now, Digital Renaissance started in 2010, and that's when Dr. Lee came here from Virginia. So we have a new superintendent with a new vision that he got really from Mark Edwards out of Morrisville. Now, Morrisville has really been in the forefront for one-to-one initiatives. They're a little bit smaller of a school district. So Dr. Lee and Mark Edwards are very close friends, and we tried to emulate and model the same things Morrisville was doing. We did that. We wanted to make sure that we used the data and that we had total engagement both from the board members to the teachers to students, engagement was critical. And then after a while, what we learned, and everybody's asking, why wouldn't we do this? I mean, everybody's really struggling to go to one-to-one today, but the question is, it is inevitable. How come they haven't done it yet? Well, as I mentioned earlier about that slice of pie, is that right now you're competing against a lot of resources or other priorities. That's what you've got to do. So if you're really going to make a one-to-one implementation, you're not going to have to just put devices in there. You have to change the culture. You have to change positions. You have to change makeup of the organization. You have to completely change. If you do not, you'll be just repeating the same process that you had in place prior to getting the devices. You just have devices doing the same thing. Question is, are you really getting your bang for the buck and really getting leverage of those devices, or are you just sharpening your pencil? But the real focus of this at the end of the day, doesn't matter what we think, doesn't matter what community thinks, it really is important what happens to the students and that they're ready to be successful when they leave our responsibility. So we're trying to make our schools future ready. The process that we discuss, again, is the board. We have an elected board with 7 members, very political. We started with working with them, went with one high school. The high school that we started in 2010 with was Baldwin County High School. It was in one of our most economically challenged areas. We are, as a school district, about 70% free and reduced. This particular school is about 80 to 85% free and reduced lunch. So this is probably a challenge demographic-wise. A lot of these folks didn't have access to internet or to computers at home. We looked at funding. We was able to get a bond to purchase some of these devices. So we roughly got about 1,200 devices to start this implementation. And right after the first year, we quickly grasped it, and that school ended up becoming an Apple Distinguished School within a year. And it was not because of the devices, it was because the innovation that was generating out of that school. That was totally, truly what we meant by engagement and being innovative. So the question is always is, why would you not do this? Usually when I get with peers and everything else, and the primary reason they assess that the reason why they cannot do a one-to-one initiative is that they just do not have the funds to do it. I would actually counter to them and say, you really have the funds, it's just not your priority is what you're saying, because if it was a priority, you can reallocate funds and send them to a different direction and make it. Baldwin County is a great example. You can see Alabama is at the top of the food chain in cutting student educational dollars. So Alabama leads the nation in something, and unfortunately in this incident it leads it in not providing funds to the educational process. And in Baldwin County, we are 99th funded in the state out of 134 school districts. So here we got a nationally lowest percentage of money from the state, and then out of that we're still 99th of the lowest in the state. So we've got to figure out how to get by and make this happen, and we've done that. So once this started within 2011, after the first semester, it was just one semester, the superintendent reported to the board and showed significant gains in academics. It showed significant gains in reduced numbers of disciplinary actions, showed significant gains in engagement of the students. You can see the transformation that was occurring at the school. That was just after one semester. So the board took it on themselves, well, if it's being that successful at that one school, let's roll it out to all the high schools. So in 2012, it was rolled out. At the same time, they started, as I mentioned, focusing how we look at education differently. Life and career academies started popping up in our high schools, where we would have technical academies, medical academies, focused on careers not just general education. And that has also been very successful. We are a member of the League of Innovative Schools, and we have created, since this is a Digital Renaissance Leadership Academy, it's our professional development strategy. I'll talk about it later. But also, we actually created the first virtual high school in the state of Alabama. We currently have 40 students in that virtual high school. It is virtual. There is no buildings. And so we are testing a lot of the state regulations and laws in order to make sure that we provide good education. We have high motivated students in this school that either they're pro athletes or their grade point averages are going to be such as that they're trying to get an accelerated degree. So these are high achieving students. We do not have a lot of dropout rate right now in the virtual high school, but we see that school expanding from 30 students to about 300 next year. Again, here's just a background. We, as I mentioned, we started in 2010, planning, executed in 2011 at Baldwin County High School, and then 2012 we rolled it out to all the rest of the high schools, 6 other high schools. But at the same time, Gulf Shores City provided additional funding to provide computers to their middle schools and the elementary schools. So there were some pockets of one-to-ones outside of our other schools. We went to 2013, we went to our middle schools, and then immediately right from the middle schools we went into the elementary schools because we were seeing such a success rate with all the high schools, the middle schools engagement. Why not go ahead and go down to the elementary? So today we are 100% one-to-one. We have Mac Airs down to the 3rd grade, iPads down to 2nd through kindergarten. When a student comes into a class, they get a bunch of equipment. One is a backpack because we really want to protect the devices to make sure that they don't get damaged. One of the biggest times laptops are damaged or broken is during transit, so we make sure that we have protective, high-quality backpacks, and that's pretty important because the cost of repair on these devices is pretty significant. We went with the Apple because the intuitive operating system. We had great examples of success because of Maine and Morrisville. And the real reason I think also is the leadership in here is that was what Dr. Lee, who was the one that was a major change agent as the new superintendent, had personal experience with Apple and wanted to make sure that that intuitive and simple experience went down to the classroom. So the data-driven part is really, really crucial. So you can see that here's an example of some of the things that we look at. Disorderly conduct went down, referral rates went down, so that was a huge thing. Truancy went down, absenteeism went down. So behavioral-wise, we have students now not wanting to go home but stay in class and engage. So that's pretty impressive with that. Again, our dropout rate has significantly improved. At Baldwin County High School and rest, we usually had a dropout rate of about 65 to 67% that stayed in class, and about almost 30% that dropped out. We're glad to say we're down about 20%, and we're working to get those numbers even lower. Students are ready to go to college. We were noted in the state for having the students that required less remediation in college than our contemporaries, so we're very proud of that. So you can see our students are getting ready for college. And more important is that for the students that's not going to college, that they are workforce ready. They have skills and understand how to use technology. They all know how to use Word and email and those kind of aspects that they need for 21st century type of employment. One of the things that we didn't start out with and had to go regroup is that professional development became a cornerstone. What we realized quickly is that these devices are not as intuitive as everybody makes believe. Yeah, they could probably do something like Word or Word documents, but leveraging from pedagogy requires professional development. And so we have spent now recently the last 3 to 4 years primarily focused more on professional development than we do on device management or making sure the devices are connected to the network. Those things are already got to be transparent and hidden. So we focus on teachers' needs. What we looked at is that we don't teach technology. What we do is integrate it with our pedagogy training. So when we look at personal style learning, our challenge-based learning, we look at those type of models and we teach them how to use technology with that pedagogy. We have differentiated instruction, so we're not focused on one because every teacher don't teach the same way. So we want to make sure that we provide various development opportunities for the teacher, whether that's online, whether that's face-to-face, or that's academies. So we use it. But we also have coaches, and we send in our infrastructure technology folks to help mentor and coach. And these folks that do that, again, work for me, and that helps out a lot. We also use Discovery Ed. They've been an excellent partner, and especially in professional development. We do Den Stars. They come also and teach in our academies that we have. We provide year-round academies where we use flex time for teacher training and professional development. So we try to focus as much time as we can with the teachers. And that's a challenge because teachers don't get much time to do professional development, and so we have to use it wisely. We also have EMINTS, which is the Enhanced Missouri Instructional Network. We have roughly about 33% of our teachers that are EMINTS trained out of 3,000. That's about 110 teachers. So we really focus on that, and it's getting more. It's a really arduous training program, and so we try to keep that going. And if you've not had any experience, I'd recommend taking a look at EMINTS and what they offer. We also have the South Alabama Regional In-Service Center, which helps provide local education to teachers. And provides teachers training outside our district. So that's also a resource that we take advantage of. And as I mentioned, we do provide online professional development. We have numerous courses. We have Professional Development 360. We do put a lot of time and energy around, again, this professional development. So if you had limited funds, I would really focus on making sure that that area in professional development is really robust and well-funded and works. We also provide a GRITS summer conference where we bring all our teachers in. We usually get about 500 teachers out of a 3,000 that come to this conference, and we focus on all kinds of training, integration sessions, and we would do some technical training here like on Word or Office 365, but we provide a broad course of instruction that tailors what the teacher's looking for, not necessarily what we think that they need. The Academy, as I mentioned, we have had about 500 teachers and principals participating. That Academy goes on yearly. Every school comes and sends folks. And really what this is a condensed course on challenge-based learning or student-centered education. And we just integrate technology use in the one-to-one into that Academy and development. So what we're seeing is we're aligned our career and readiness standards and engaging our activities towards a classroom, framing the essential questions to make sure that when we do challenge-based learning that teachers understand how to leverage the process and the pedagogy with the devices that we provide. I have right now 8 instructional transformation specialists and a educational coordinator that just focuses on coaching, mentoring, professional development. So that is an important part of the technology team. But as I mentioned, technology we do not like to focus on, that's why I like to be called a chief change agent rather than a chief technology officer, because I really like to focus on our kids and what we do academically, and not focus on whether you got a Mac or a Windows-based machine. So as I mentioned earlier, that we support teachers, not technology. When I first got here 3 years ago, I've been here, this is my 3rd year, is that we focused on repairing devices and neglected what teachers were doing with these devices in the classroom. Well, we changed it around, is that we really do not support the devices. We outsource all repairs unless it's really trivial repairs that we can fix instantly. We just have excess inventory. If a student or teacher's machine goes down, they get replaced instantly with a new one, and then we outsource the repairs out to a third party. We like to see our tech folks be considered educators and not technologists, that we are not obstacles but integrators to what needs to happen in the classroom. So we have to work in changing the teacher's perspective of the technology department and focus on getting us as consulting folks that they can trust, and we're not here just to say no, but we're here to make their lives better. So the back end of it is one thing that I try to do is keep it as transparent and sustainable as possible. I don't like networks and those type of discussions to be brought into anything academically, so we try to keep all the things that keep the lights on away from the academic endeavor. So basically the digital renaissance is focused on the tools, but the vision is very important. And here's what we do with our core vision on future-ready schools. We focus on equity. That's why we're not a bring your own device. We are 70% free and reduced. Some of these devices that these people take home, and they take home from the grades right now from 12th to 3rd, that's the only device that a lot of these houses have, and it's used more than just an educational. It really enhances and empowers the community. We get the career readiness standards engaged into this process, so if it's not part of that, we do not like to talk about it or engage. Focus on the teacher and preparing them. None of this replaces a teacher. The teacher's the facilitator. We just need to work with them to make their facilitation better in order to enhance our students. Sustainability and avoiding obsolescence. One of the big things is that you have to plan that purchasing technology is not a capital expense, it's an operational expense. So you have to plan annually to replace technology, and not something that you have to go really asking for every other year or hoping to get a bond or a grant to come through. If you do, really you're not going to be successful in the program. We already talked about the devices. We're at 45,000 and it's connected right now. As of today, we're about 50. We're seeing all kinds of new devices come. Chromebooks are being looked at right now. We have a lot of teachers and special ed folks using Chromebooks. And now with Windows Stream, we're very interested to see how that's coming. We do have several of them. So the packages, as I mentioned, when a child starts school, they get a backpack, they get headphones, they get access to district-wide software such as Icurio, Rosetta Stone, iStation, Moodle Rooms that's already set up and ready for them to go. We also provide protection that right now for a student to get a device, they have to go through an orientation with their parents. They got to understand the accountability piece, and they also pay $64 for a protection fee or insurance. Historically, we outsourced that, but now in the last 3 years, we maintain our own insurance within the district, and that's worked out very well. So here's the numbers, and this is where we need to talk about when you get into finances. It's all about the money, right? So this is where all the conversations always lead on to outside our organization. There was a lot of discussion that we spent too much money on this initiative, but if you look at it, it's less than 3% of our overall budget, and that 3% impacts over 87% of everything that we do financially and operationally. So it's hard to get folks to change their perspective when you talk about a device. They only look at the cost of the device. They do not want to discuss the complexity of the cost of education and how this allows you to change your organization and have students more engaged. So, but at the end of the day, it basically cost $1.40 a day for our students to get a Mac Air. Now next year, that $1.40 is even going down because these numbers were based on a 3-year recycle, but we discovered that the Mac Airs are in such good condition, we're going to go to a 4th and maybe 5th year, so the costs are going to go down significantly to about 70 cents to, hopefully we can get it down to 50 cents a day for the cost of those devices. Now, Project Red shows is that they did a study with 1,000 schools. They looked at one-to-one schools compared to traditional, and what they discovered, and if you're doing it right, you're saving dollars to go to a one-to-one initiative. Now, you really have to take a hard look. Our systems were not geared to really capture the savings. Our financial systems were looking on a lot of these things, so it's a lot of indirect costs. But even with direct costs such as core curriculum savings, not purchasing textbooks, it's still a huge savings for us, that things that we could see directly save. We saved $126 a year on a student by going to a one-to-one opposed to a traditional school. And what we discovered is that we can't afford textbooks anymore because the state removed the funding for that. So we're building our own curriculum and saving money academically with those type of materials. So our infrastructure right now, we have about a 3 gig going to a 5 gig network. We have every classroom, which is several thousand, wireless. We did away with our phone system. Our complete district phone system is over our network. We centralized mobile management. We use FileWave to do that. We centralize account. No longer does teachers or registrars enter student information. We do that centrally, so we try to take the burden off of them. Our staff right now for infrastructure, we have 1 coordinator and 3 network engineers. One of those network engineers are dedicated to the phone systems. So that's the way our infrastructure is set up. We've got a lot of good strategic partners in that area, and we work closely with our partners. As I mentioned, we focused again with personalized education, content management. At the end of the day, what we focus on and what we believe in is definitely content and how our teachers leverage that content for the benefit and engagement of students. So bottom line, that is why we do it, and that's what we're doing today. But I want to now talk about what didn't go well with this process and things that we need to look at going forward and what we need to do with our community to get more engagement. We just had a tax referendum, and we're asking for funds to build schools, and that was turned down significantly with only 30% of the community wanted to provide additional funding to our school system. So we can't build any more schools for a while until we get funding somewhere from the state. As I mentioned earlier, is that we're going at 1,000 students, so we should be building a school a year, and we don't have the funds to do that. So we've got to become creative and innovative on what we're going to be doing with the students. The other aspect is that what we also see is there's a large misunderstanding in our community on the financial aspects of a one-to-one. A lot of parents' point of reference is when they went to school and not what kids do today. So that's a big issue. And we got to do better, and we're working hard on working on parents with town hall meetings and discussions on this is no longer the school that you attended. We don't buy books anymore. And that's what is a huge thing. Everybody mentions and thinks technology is a luxury. But honestly, all our safety, our surveillance, everything is driven on our network. So it's critical systems that's not understood totally by our teachers, by our community. So we've got to go back and do that engagement. It's been 5 years since we started this initiative, and now we're going to be looking on maybe changing out Mac Airs with a different model, whether that's a Windows-based machine, a Chromebook, or even the streams. We're now going into pilots next year to see if any of those meet our standards, and that we'd want to select that, so we're vetting that. It's a big issue for us as well, because your device does matter as far as education, but we're going to try to maintain standards so that everybody stays on the same device. So that's basically what we're doing here in Baldwin County, and I do appreciate your time and effort, and I guess I could open up for questions, and if anybody has any questions, I guess you open up the speaker, and I'll be glad to respond. Okay, Kelly, I've turned it over to you for in case anybody had any questions, or I'll be glad to answer.
Okay, this is Paul. I'm back on. Let's see if I could read a few questions here. Were there many teachers that were reluctant to get on board with the use of technology? How did that change over time?
Okay, can you hear this, Paul?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good question. As I mentioned earlier, the one constant in our business is change, and educators are the most resistant to change in any other organization I've ever been acquainted with. So yes, there's a lot of reluctance. There's no incentive to change a teacher's behavior financially, so you've got to engage them both socially, by peer engagement, those kind of aspects, get the change agents engaged in the schools. Education is always the best, so the ones that's the most reluctant usually have fear, so we work on those fears through education. But yes, that's an issue, and there's going to honestly be some that do not want to come on board. We should not make them come on board with our process. Again, the focus is going to be what's best for the child, and we try to get overall who's going to adapt and change and work with them directly. But not all teachers are going to do it.
Okay, I have another question. With such a small staff, even with outsourcing repairs, how do you do it? Teachers are constantly needing help.
Right, and that's a big issue. Is that's where we focus on, is teachers with help. So we try to keep that where we're allocating as many resources to each school. Every high school has a teacher that works for me that's dedicated to assist the teachers. Every middle school has a resource individual, or a tech, if you will, that's focused on supporting those. We have excess inventory at all these schools, so if the teacher needs help, we just provide the device. We try to train the teachers to be level 1 support, and we try to get anything that they can't handle. So we try to do a flipped classroom where the tech becomes teachers and the teachers become techs.
Very good. All right, one more question. You spoke of your virtual academy. If the citizens don't want to pay more in taxes for brick and mortar, do you see this as a viable option for expansion? Looking for a collaboration there, it looks like.
Absolutely. I think we have to go there, and we have to look at maybe even doing the college model where students go into high school on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, and then have other groups going in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're going to have to be innovative because we just do not have the facilities to accommodate all of them. This is complicated in the elementary schools. That's where we're finding we're going to have to figure out different ways of holding classes for elementary schools.
All right, one more question. Why did you select some of the partners you mentioned in this presentation?
One of the things that we did is that we vetted, we had to vet our partners to be not vendors but partners, and what do they bring in to the table besides product? And they get to see a large depth of a lot of districts, and so they bring that knowledge back to us, so we depend on them for best practices. We also look at the best products, the best things that could be used for our students, and so that's how there's a whole process that we go through on partner selection, but we feel like they should be at the table when we're making decisions and providing input also.
All right. You mentioned a little bit about the fact you're looking into Chromebooks. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? What do you see as their biggest advantage? Obviously, pricing. What else?
As mentioned, we're looking at Chromebooks because they didn't exist when we did the Mac Airs to begin with. So we're just looking at what they are. We're creating a rubrics on measuring what device. Chromebooks bring a lot of ease. It's a very simple device. Management's down. Cost is good. But we are running into some issues right now. We do all our online testing. We've run into problem with Java, so we've not adopted any Chromebooks into any of our classes yet. But we continue to evaluate them and wait till they're ready, and we might go down that direction. But again, that's driven by the teacher. We have spent 5 years training teachers on a particular device. It is significant to change the device on a teacher in mid-course or even after training. We don't want to set the process back. We want to make sure we're still accelerating the curriculum, not detracting from it.
All right. I'll make this the last question. Well, you've addressed it from the teacher's point of view, the reluctance. What about the parents and the general community? Remember you talked during your presentation about, just almost like campfire meetings when I was out there. You'd go out to coffee shops, wherever you could meet people. So it's probably along those lines, I think, this question.
Yeah, I would say without even regards with technology, a student's success usually depends on the parent's engagement, period, whether that's with technology or just on life in general. What we find is the parents that are engaged, they embrace this, so it's not a difficult thing to sell to them. It gets more complicated when you have disengaged parents because they don't want this. They have a difficult time engaging and interacting with their child. So we're trying to now start working where we engage the parents to give them more idea and understanding what these devices can do. There's also a dark side of these devices when you take them home and inappropriate use. So we work with providing tools and behavioral issues and give parents a good sense of what it really means for a student to be versed in digital citizenship.
Very good. Well, that's probably enough questions, and I know we're getting close to the 1 hour that we've set aside for this. I do want to remind people this program will be available on the Brent Haven Education website. I'd also be very curious if there's any feedback. What can we do or other subject matter that you'd like to hear about? We're always looking for new speakers, so if you have any feedback on this program or suggestions who or what subject matter you'd like to hear about, you could send that information to Kelly N, as in Nancy, Kelly N, at BrentHavenHQ.com. I'd like to thank everyone that's been on board with us for about this last hour. Homer, a big thank you to you for your time and your expertise, and we'll be back out here probably in 90 days or so. So thank you very much.
Thank you.